Lab is a homegrown, self-learning journey into IT and cybersecurity, narrated by Simon Arnold. It is being built from the ground up, documenting progression through systems, networking, and SOC concepts as it develops, including the mistakes, the learning process, and the real-world growth that comes with it. It is hoped that viewers find value in the series and are able to take something useful from the journey as it unfolds. Enjoy!
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Little Root Lab, episode 2. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about deployment of wazuh, spelt W-A-Z-U-H. And the idea of wazuh is for me to move from a more theory-based cybersecurity environment to a more practical environment where absolutely everything is really hands-on. And I just want to explain what's happened over the last couple of days. I've finally turned my computers off and they've powered down. Still a little bit hot, and I guess as the information's a little bit hot really, I just want to share it with all of you. So welcome back, and thank you very much for joining me on YouTube. It does mean a lot, so please subscribe and like, and just leave your comments down in the comment section if you can help out a little bit. Maybe you've got some job opportunities that you could send my way. Wow, maybe you can just extend my knowledge a little bit as I grow with all the information. And yeah, I love your feedback as well. So thank you for joining me. Over the last couple of days, I am thrilled, actually, in a funny way, to have a big airline company actually write back and say, unfortunately, we don't want you at this stage, but to be even considered for a cybersecurity job with one of the top airlines in the world is such a big feat. And today really marks the 6th month of going from no prior computer knowledge to, yes, airlines wanting me potentially for a job. So it's fantastic. So let's take a step back a little bit, because this podcast is really just to explain and give everyone a bit of a log on my progress as I learn more about cybersecurity and IT from starting from nothing, and just continuously moving on really. So an interesting point as we pick up on wazuh part 1 today is looking at my computer systems at home and thinking, okay, where do we start? So if you're interested in cybersecurity, it's always pretty cool actually to start with an air-gapped computer system. So air-gapped means not on a local area network, or which is like Ethernet to another computer, or just an Ethernet cable to Wi-Fi, or just your computer connected to Wi-Fi. It's really just completely hands-free is what's called air-gapped, and that just made up really 100% of my theory over the last few months. It's been fantastic. And I'm just, for information's sake, running a Linux-based operating system. I was originally, and you heard this in episode 1, using Ubuntu, and that's Ubuntu GNOME, and I found it to be very, very professional, almost a little bit too professional, to be honest, for my liking. It was fantastic for Metasploit, but I wanted something a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more, between Mac OS and a little bit of Windows kind of look, really. And that's where Kubuntu, with a K, comes in, really. It works on the Debian framework, because Debian is actually, it's just the way that Linux is designed, with the Debian like master, and Ubuntu is from Debian, and Kubuntu is also Debian as well, because underneath Kubuntu is actually an Ubuntu OS as well. So I think it's 24.4, And Kubuntu is so much more like macOS friendly on the desktop screen and everything else, and for some people they actually prefer that, and it is actually a good way to start setting up just a home lab, really. You may have heard of Linux Kali, and of course that is really the professional standard for cybersecurity as you go up. If you have listened to episode 1, my goal is to get an SOC, so SOC, Security Operations Center analyst, tier 1. It's a junior position, and that's actually also known as blue team. And there are generally 3 stages of that. There's SOC tier 1, SOC tier 2, and then you've got like the upper level of SOC analyst as well, and then it moves into purple team, which is great, and then it moves on to red team, and there's red team 1, 2 and 3. So blue team is more what's the word, maybe we get into that a little bit later as we move through the years and my progression there. Really, I just don't want to overload you too much, as we're picking up on Wazuh today and the deployment of Wazuh to one system, which is my Linux Kubuntu. So let's open the box, shall we? Okay, so if you are a private person, and you've got a computer, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I need some security mechanisms on my computer. What do I think of first? And I think what most of us really think of is antivirus. Norton antivirus, McAfee as well. In the area of cybersecurity, it's a tiny little bit different actually. We use as the first level of security, it's called a SIEM, SIEM, and it stands for Security Information and Event Management. So I could go into a little bit more about that, but then you've got the SIEM first of all, and then you also have firewalls as well, and you do have antivirus as well. So we tend to see the SIEM as very important, as the first area of just making sure everything runs properly, really. And in order for a security lab, so the little root lab really to run, I've got now Ethernet cables linking up Linux with a TP-Link box, and Windows 10 with a TP-Link box as well. I'm just fiddling around a little bit with the ports, just to get a good DNS, good DNS function there, so it actually can connect with the internet. I was connecting internet with Linux today, and that was fantastic. And so it's the first deployment of Wazuh, which is really the SIEM that I'm talking about. So the Security Information and Event Management, and basically what it does is it provides, and you do it all through the command line. So when you open up Kubuntu on Linux and press Control Alt and T, you then go basically into Bash, which is where you can write you can write on the command line to put all the functions in. And I did that today. I did that yesterday. I spent 3 hours, and Wazuh I was actually installing in a way. It's a little bit different if you're a normal person and you're used to installing software from a CD or a USB or something like that. It's a little bit different because you actually install it within Bash, so within the command line, by basically writing code in a way, right? So with Wazuh you would write, for example, systemctl, status, wazuh minus, it's getting a little bit late in the night now, I have to remember what it is, system-manager, system-indexer, and system-dashboard as well. And what happens when you put that lovely, line of descriptions in there, really, you get like a reply whether each of those three singular areas are actually enabled. And it's fascinating, it's absolutely fascinating. Yesterday, yes, they were enabled, but the dashboard wasn't at the end. And what I'd found really from going through Wazuh yesterday, and yes, I did have the deployment, already on Linux yesterday, all ready to use, was the fact that I couldn't have done it without all my theory over the last few months and having an air-gapped system. And air-gapped, of course, is just having the computer not connected to any other computer or the internet, right? And just really practicing it and practicing it and practicing it so it just becomes second nature, really. And that's what's the most wonderful thing as I log all of my experiences here, that my second day using Wazuh was really just just like the brain memory of just everything I've learned. I never had to look up what systemctl was. I never had to look up what sudo was. I didn't have to look up sudo ss. I didn't have to look up sudo -tulmp. Lots of things there. And I tell you what, you've got to get the theory really well off pat. You've got to have that as the groundstone foundation if you want to go into cybersecurity, really. And another thing, the biggest thing actually, has been the fact that I'm using a Logitech keyboard on Linux, and I'm using a QWERTY keyboard. So with an English keyboard you've got QWERTY. Everyone's heard of QWERTY, where basically next to the T is a Y, but in Germany here we have a Z where the Y would be, so it's called QWERTY. And I've got two QWERTY keyboards here, and then I've got my, and it's even though it's one letter, the Y and the Z, it can completely put you off your game. But that's where the muscle memory comes in when you're actually using the command line on Bash, just to write everything in there. And yesterday I had the brilliant deployment, and today, due to the older equipment that I've got, it was really just lagging behind, but I did actually have everything enabled and everything running today, which was fantastic. And it's all slowly and surely. We live in a world really where everything wants to be instant, and I think with cybersecurity it is anything but instant in some cases, especially when you're learning. But it's nice to see that the practicality aspect can take over. I know what to put in on Bash on the command line, and it's just really adjusting the instructions as you go, and it's wonderful. Again, you've got to have the ground stone theory of everything, even the top 30 commands of Linux, the top 30 commands of Windows. Because when you hop onto Windows 10, because that was my next stage today really, and there are some teething problems with Windows 10. Linux was fantastic. Kubuntu's absolutely not a problem. It's just a time element, right? And making sure that everything runs. But Windows 10, if anyone's starting with a Windows 10 device for their own lab at home, please just, please go into the administrator, So you'd actually go down to like the cog wheel, and press on that with the right mouse click, and then you basically can use so the command line with administrator, and I suggest you go and use administrator straight away, so you don't have any hang-ups after that really. So got a few problems just with the Ethernet cables, I think, more than anything, from the Windows machine to internet, and just checking to see whether my digital box from Vodafone can actually take all of it, with all the communication that's going backwards and forwards now that it's not an air-gapped lab. But I'll be looking at that tomorrow. If you know me from my past podcast, because this isn't my very first podcasting session, you know that I do a lot of grazing. And when I mean about grazing, it's just really sticking at something until it's done, if that makes sense. And there is no time limit on setting up Wazoo. I've already done it on Linux. It's just, with slow systems, it's just checking the status of them and refreshing them and getting them online, and then moving over to Windows 10. Not to do a complete Wazoo from the beginning. It's really so that Linux can just communicate with Windows 10, and then you'll start seeing the projects forming from my side, and I'll be talking about them more on YouTube here, because it's fascinating. I absolutely love this area. All of it is just, it clicks. It just clicks, and it only clicks because I was putting in, I think I got up to like month 5 and worked out how many hours I've actually put in of self-directed study, and I think it was 600 to 650 episodes. I want to give a big shout out to the whole of the late night Linux podcast family. So really the Late Night Linux podcast. And I just want to say thank you very much for giving me the chance to learn about IT systems in a nice, friendly manner, and having lots of different points of view on actual, up-to-date themes as well. So thank you very much for that, because I listen to about 3 hours of those podcasts a day when I'm out and about and doing other chores. So so thank you very much, the Late Night Linux podcast. I've learnt so much from you, and congratulations on just making such a wonderful podcast to listen to every single day. Thank you. Otherwise, I think I'm going to bring this in for a landing today. The computers have now completely cooled down. I have been running a fan under my Linux computer today, just to keep everything a little bit cooler. If you have any questions, just send them over to me at the Little Root Lab channel here. Like and subscribe, really, and I'll keep you up to date. And I'll be doing, hopefully, getting Wazoo on the Windows 10 as the next stage, and then start the projects and start the logs and everything else. There's nothing better that I can be doing, and if you are a cybersecurity company listening, send me over a message, and we can get the ball rolling, really. If you haven't listened to episode 1, cybersecurity companies have been making independent contact with me and asking where I actually am in regards to cybersecurity. A lot of you have said that I'm very, very solid theory based and get all of those questions answered very well, but slowly and surely I'm working into the practical side of things, and not that it's a no-brainer, it's just almost automatic for me just to see the command line and put in the right instructions to get the right result. And I believe that you've got the right result in listening to this channel. So thank you very much, and I'll catch you next time.